Hi, second graders. Happy Thursday. Just a quick reminder, today is kind of our last day for the week with having schoolwork to do. Tomorrow is a professional development day, which is one of those days that, teachers kind of have school, but students don't. So tomorrow, which is Friday, you won't be having your science or social studies. And there's also no school on Monday for Memorial Day. So today is kind of like your last day of having work to do. But if any of you want to kind of use some of that extra time to get caught up on any assignments that you haven't done yet, you certainly can. All right, so today I will be reading chapter 3 from Lizards in the Lunch Line. Chapter 3 is called Green Goosebumps. And when we had left off yesterday, Dominic and Jake were kind of coming out of the water towards this group of kids playing. And of course, the kids were really scared because these are swamp monsters coming out of the water. And remember, Jake had been saying to his cousin that that he had, been to one of their houses and saw them on a TV and that sort of thing. All right, Jake had no choice. He jumped out of the swamp to help Dominic. The cool late afternoon air gave Jake's scaly skin goosebumps, but Jake couldn't worry about that. He had to help Dominic. When Emily saw Jake, she stopped screaming. "Jake, is that really you?" she asked. Jake grinned. Emily had remembered him. Remember how he was telling Dominic that he knows the people and Dominic didn't believe him? "Hi," he said. "This is my cousin Dominic. He wanted to see if you guys were real." "Hi," Dominic said with a big wave of his webbed hand. "Awesome to meet you." "Nice to meet you too," Emily said with a gulp. The skinny boy named Ryan stood there with his mouth open. The sun flashed off Ryan's braces. But the tall kid named Frank shook his head. "I see it, but I don't believe it," he said. "You look like Jake, only green." Tommy laughed. "I told you guys that Emily and I saw Jake as a swamp monster. Now you know we were telling the truth." Frank couldn't help himself. He poked a finger at the webbing on Jake's hand. "It's not a costume," Frank said with a gulp. "I told you swamp monsters were real," Emily told Frank and Ryan. "There were whole families of swamp monsters living in that swamp. So the swamp monsters and the people each didn't really believe that the other, were real. They were each telling their family members that the other was real, and they didn't believe it until now that they're seeing each other." Ryan looked at the swamp and his face turned a little green. "Nothing personal, Jake, but that's kind of creepy." Jake smiled. "Don't worry. It's scary for us that there are so many webless creatures like you around." Ryan nodded. "Good point," he said. Ryan stood very still while Dominic poked his cheeks and sniffed his hair. Dominic walked around all the kids and touched their clothes. He was particularly amazed with Frank's new sneakers. "Jake, these things on the end of his legs light up." "They're called shoes," Frank explained. Dominic nodded his head in fascination. "Jake," Emily said, trying to ignore Dominic's webbed fingers as they ran through her hair. "It's great to see you, but isn't it dangerous for swamp monsters to be out in the open like this? This is a public park. Anyone can use it." Sort of like how the BFG was afraid of being seen by people. Jake looked around nervously. The little clearing by the swamp looked deserted. He was worried that another webless creature, which would be a person, might come along. He knew he could trust these 4 humans, but anyone else would probably put him and his cousins in the zoo. Isn't that so funny? That's just what the BFG used to think. If people saw him or saw any of the giants, that the people just put them in the zoo, and that's what Jake is worried about also. "You're right, Emily," Jake said. "We'd better get going. Come on, Dominic." Dominic didn't budge. He was trying to toss Ryan's ball up in the air and catch it. His slippery, webbed hands made it hard. Dominic did manage to throw it up in the air, but it bonked him on the nose and he let out a loud swamp monster yelp. "Come on, Derek." Sorry, not Derek, Dominic. "Come on, Dominic," Jake said, grabbing his cousin's elbow. "We'd better get back to the swamp." Here's a picture that I'll show you. So here are the two swamp monsters, Jake and Dominic, and the kids. Dominic dug his webbed toes into the ground and shook his head. "I'm not going anywhere. This is cool. I'm staying right here to find out more about life on land." Jake gulped. Dominic was much bigger than him, and if he didn't want to go, Jake couldn't force him. "Coming out here was a big mistake," Jake said. "We've got to get back to the swamp before it's too late." Emily gasped. "Oh my gosh, it is too late. Someone's coming." Uh-oh. So here is Dominic, the swamp monster, and he's, has his hands across his chest, his feet are right in the ground, and he's saying, "I'm not going anywhere. This is really cool. I like seeing these people and learning about these people, and I'm not going anywhere." So that could be a problem. So chapter 4, I will read next Tuesday, I guess. And chapter 4 is called Creepy. So I will read that on Tuesday. And I hope that all of you have a wonderful long 4-day weekend and enjoy the beautiful weather that we're having too. All right, bye.